Hello, my name is Paul Wynne. I'm from Greenpeace. I'm in Bonn at the climate talks, the United Nations climate talks in Germany. I work on a little known area of the climate talks with an unfortunate acronym of LULUCF, which is land use change in forestry. It's basically the emissions that arise from logging and agriculture, and as well as the climate greenhouse gases that are sequestered or absorbed by forests. It basically operates by countries adding up their emissions or their removals from forests and agriculture, and this offsets fossil fuel emission reductions. So it's very, very critical that LULUCF emissions and removals are accounted for in a robust and confident manner, because they do have the effect that it means that countries will reduce emissions less from their fossil fuel emissions. The LULUCF negotiations at the moment here in Bonn are at a very critical stage. We're getting very, very close to seeing negotiations finalised around a set of rules that are very, very poor. If they were applied to other sectors, there would be an outcry across the world. But unfortunately, not many people know about this sector. It's a very technical area, and it's very, very difficult to explain it to most people. But I'll try. The main issue that's being discussed here at the moment is around forest management, and that is the emissions that come from logging forests, and the absorption of carbon dioxide from growing forests. And this is in developed countries, in rich, wealthy countries, which is different than the RED, or reducing emissions from deforestation, that is also being discussed here, which is in tropical developing countries. So forest management in developed countries, the rules that are being negotiated here are basically allowed wealthy countries to set their own baseline, or their own level on which they base whether their forests have either emitted carbon dioxide or whether their forests have removed carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And allowing countries to set their own baseline has led to a great deal of potential emissions from logging to go unaccounted for. What this will mean is that basically across all rich countries in the world, about 400 to 500 megatons, 500 million tons of carbon dioxide is likely to be ignored in the accounting. And that is very, very poor management, because it means that countries can increase the logging of forests and increase the emissions that result from that logging without having to include those emissions in their accounting. So we're trying very, very hard to overturn these rules, or at least introduce some rules that might minimise the damage that may be created. One of those ways is to put a cap on the amount of sequestration, or the amount of removals that a country can account for from its forests, and that will at least mean that these rules won't lead to excessive amounts of offsets, and may limit the damage of the rules that have currently been negotiated. We're also looking at trying to introduce a review process where countries have to justify their inflated baselines against an historical average. So you look at what the forest was doing in the past and project that into the future, and if it doesn't align with the baseline that the country has set itself, then a review team can adjust that baseline accordingly. We're not sure whether that amendment will be successful, but we're still hoping. Now, what you can do is to put pressure on your governments. We really need to make sure that this issue is outed, and that people understand that rules that allow countries to emit without having to account for them shouldn't be allowed in a in a convention or in a protocol that is itself about reducing emissions and trying to avoid climate tipping points. If we allow these rules in LULUCF, then we're very likely to see these kind of rules being imposed in other sectors, which would be a travesty. It's a travesty itself in LULUCF, but if it were to start to become more widespread, then we would likely to see many countries being able to increase emissions without having to account for it. So it would be great if people could actually start contacting their governments and telling them that they want these countries to account for the emissions from their forest sectors, to realistically account for them and remove the emissions that are currently being caused by logging in those countries. Thank you very much.